JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a cultural phenomenon where each part focuses on a different time period and main character, with very unique stories and art style. You won't ever find a manga like this. And in this video I'll be going through the entirety of JoJo's Stone Ocean, all 158 chapters explaining the entire story, so sit back and enjoy JoJo Part 6. The story begins in 2011 in the state of Florida, USA, on the 28th of October, as we see a young woman staring at the corpse of a man run over by a car. We then cut to the woman's holding cell where we see the main character, Jolyne Cujoh, banging her head against the bed due to being embarrassed that she was caught pleasing herself as a guard who looked like Tom Cruise walked in.
What?
We then see Jolyne informed by her lawyer that she will be sent to Green Dolphin Street Prison to receive punishment for a crime, which she denies. The lawyer then brings her some essentials for a stay in prison while she waits for the hearing. One item being a shiny amulet from her father, and after opening the amulet, a chipped stone cuts her finger. And we learn her father has gone overseas and was never around for her as a kid. She throws the amulet down the drain. Now on the 6th of November, Jolyne is with the woman from earlier heading to the prison. Her name is Ermes Costello, who is fascinated by Jolyne and tells her that you will need money in prison, as she has hid her own stash in a hole she added on her chest. However, Jolyne, upon exiting, can hear the guards' voices inside the truck and sees a string has now appeared from her injured finger back inside, letting her hear the guards threatening Ermes. Now using the string while still walking away from the truck, pulling apart from her hand, an act which the guards can't see, she cuts the guards' ears off in the truck, saving Ermes while also stealing their money. As we now see on the night of the crime, with Jolyne riding in the car with her boyfriend Romeo. However, the car crashes when her body slams into the windshield. Jolyne sees the body and goes to call an ambulance, but Romeo stops her for fear of both of their futures. He then convinces her to hide the body in the trunk. Days later, she is arrested, suspected to be the driver, as Romeo had reported the car stolen and said Jolyne probably drove it and killed the pedestrian. Jolyne, however, won't say who was the driver of the car when asked by her lawyer, who then explains what a plea bargain is. If she accepts the guilty verdict, she will only get a 1 or 2 year sentence. However, in court, more evidence is revealed that she hid the body, so her plea is invalid. But since she said she was guilty, she gets a 15-year sentence at Green Dolphin State Prison. The justice system at its finest. And we learn that the lawyer was working with Romeo to frame Jolyne for the crime, which he overhears with her string. She really should have got a better lawyer. Now in prison, she is sent to maximum security and assigned the number FE40536. She, however, ain't going quietly, and when ordered to strip, mocks the guards, earning the respect of the nearby Ermes. Jolyne also spies the lawyer and gives a note to the guard to hand to him, which says she will enact her revenge on him at some point. And as we see the lawyer driving away, he turns on the air conditioning as strings come out and strangle him, causing him to crash into the railing, as we see a different person picking up that same stone pendant. Now in prison, Jolyne gets a hair cut, which she refuses, but the barber suggests to pay up to keep her hair, teaching Jolyne how money runs the prison. She then meets Loco Barocco, the prison manager, who, alongside his alligator puppet Charlotte, explains that the prisoners here do get various freedoms. Jolyne then back to her cell meets her roommate Gwess, but as Jolyne puts her stuff on the bottom bunk, Gwess attacks her, saying it's her bunk, and amongst her belongings, Jolyne sees the amulet. Just to buy it from her, but Gwess asks for $200. Jolyne, angry, is then distracted by a bird that appears in Gwess's pocket, who weirdly has 2 tiny human arms pop off the head to grab a cracker before hiding back in the bird body.
What?
Jolyne, now unable to sleep with what she saw, wakes up in the night to see Gwess staring at her. However, Gwess apologizes for how she acted and gives her the pendant to open and see if her dad's picture is inside. However, it's empty, there's no picture. Jolyne though accepts her apology and the two become friends. Now at breakfast, Jolyne is late and realizes her pants are soaking wet, and taking the time to fix that, when she finally makes it to the cafeteria, all the food is sold out. She sees Gwess throwing away her breakfast and notices she had 2. Jolyne thinks Gwess wet her pants to then steal her breakfast, and in the trash she sees her parents' picture, showing that Gwess did throw it out from the pendant, meaning it's hers. As we see Gwess playing with a pet bird, rewarding it with treats. However, it says the word Whoa. Angering Quest that it's not acting like a bird. Jolyne then uses her strings to switch the bird with a banana and thinks that the amulet also gave Quest an ability like her, and she opens the bird to see limbs fall out. However, with Quest approaching, Jolyne hides, yet sees the objects get bigger as she slowly shrinks down to the size of a bird. Quest then captures Jolyne, saying she wants her to help her escape prison, forcing Jolyne to wear a hollowed out rat corpse, ignoring Jolyne's question as to what happened to the human inside the bird. Thus begins Rat Jolyne. Quest has a stand is named Goo Goo Dolls and orders Jolyne to wear the rat suit and infiltrate the control center to scout a way to escape the prison. However, as Jolyne begins to do so, she moves further away from Quest, weakening the power, meaning she starts to grow. She manages to distract the guards with string and escape back into the hallway. However, the stand Goo Goo Dolls chases her for leaving the rat suit. As Jolyne grows, she is unable to fit back through the metal bars, and she learns how this stand is a manifestation of the user's will, and Quest is mad at Jolyne for disobeying her orders. Jolyne then scrambles up a bar but gets trapped as she keeps growing. However, just as she's about to get hit, the stand awakens and knocks Goo Goo Dolls back. She grabs the stand and demands to see Quest, and we see her wounded as the pain is dealt onto the user. Quest uses the power to free Jolyne, who demands the amulet back and also who she purchased it from. Quest says she bought it from Ermes. However, Quest tricks Jolyne and punches her back through the bars, then yelling at the guards that someone is escaping. With Jolyne now big again, she can't squeeze back through, as Quest mocks her. Big mistake. Jolyne names her stand Stone Free and goes sicko mode, punching through the bars, her fist turning into strings before reconnecting around the bar before Quest's face, and now commands Quest to free her from the bars. Jolyne now learns about her powers. When unraveling, Stone Free can travel further, but is more weak. When it's close, it gets the humanoid form. However, it still isn't strong enough to bust down the prison bars. Now on the phone, a prisoner asks for money from her, saying she will pay her back later. However, Jolyne isn't able to use the phones as they are reservation only, with a month-long backlog. Quest appears, wanting forgiveness, and as a tip, says that giving that dollar away, unless she gets it back, will harm her reputation here in the long run. So Jolyne confronts the prisoner while using her stand to poison a drink. Jolyne then locks herself in the bathroom while that prisoner gets sick, and in her pain offers way more money to Jolyne to use the bathroom. Jolyne then also uses this tactic to help another timid prisoner get back at their bullies. And as she leaves, she notices a baseball and a small boy chasing after it. The boy warns her that someone will want to meet her tomorrow and that she must under no circumstance meet this person. However, he instantly disappears. And sure enough, she has a visitor. But before entering, the boy suddenly appears again from inside a trash can, grabbing her hand to warn her. Jolyne, confused, ignores his warning, and realizing she won't listen, the boy gives her an odd-looking bone and says, "Do not let go of it." And Jolyne enters to see her father, one Jotaro Cujoh, who instantly asks where's the amulet. Jolyne, mad at seeing him, knocks out the guard trying to cut short the visit. However, Jotaro says he's here to break her out of prison. We then cut to a blind male prisoner who somehow can see outside the showers. Back inside the room, Jotaro brings out a picture of the blind person, John Garley, who was the one who set up the car accident, sending her to prison as thugs threw the victim in front of the car, and that the lawyer tricked her. All of this was set up by John Garley, who is a loyal follower of Dio, an old enemy of Jotaro, and that he did all this to get revenge on him. However, Jolyne says she doesn't consider him as a father and won't work with him. She will escape here herself without his help. However, Jotaro notices a fresh cigarette on the table, not matching the guards, and suddenly Jolyne is shot. Jotaro uses his stand Star Platinum to stop time for a few seconds and sees Jolyne using her strings to stop the bullet like a bulletproof vest. However, it's still a bullet and whacks Jolyne back. Jotaro says there's a sniper and to put out the cigarette, and that John Garley could have easily snuck a sniper rifle into prison through various pieces. Jolyne remembers the bone that the bald kid gave her and asks her dad what it is. He says it's part of a human female's pelvis. As he then sees John Garley's stand, Manhattan Transfer, floating outside the room. Jolyne, ignoring her dad, attacks it, but it moves, somehow reacting to the air currents. But then the guard wakes up and attacks, but just as Jotaro awakens his stand again, it's too late as he's shot in the shoulder with a bullet hitting the guard in the head. The stand seems to sense the location of the targets from the air currents and redirects the bullets from his sniper. Jolyne now uses her stand to hold a lighter under the smoke alarm to activate the sprinklers, weakening the air currents. However, before the next attack, the kid appears, saying to kick the stone under the wall pillar to reveal a passageway, and she does so, finding an entrance to the prison sewers. However, the stand now goes after the kid, so Jolyne goes after the kid to protect him. Jolyne looks for the kid who's named Emporio and finds him in the machinery room. He goes into the sewer pipe to avoid detection from Manhattan. However, by shooting the shaft, John Garley bursts open the pipe. But before the kill shot, Jolyne makes a net to cover Manhattan. John Garley now goes to shoot Jolyne, missing slightly because Jolyne destroyed gas pipes to ruin the accuracy of the wind currents. Stone Free then traps Manhattan, punching it, which wounds John Garley. Jolyne asks Emporio about the bone and who he is, but he just continues to say, "Hold the bone." Jotaro then arrives as Jolyne sees John Garley's reflection in a puddle. She warns her dad that he's in the room, but that's impossible to come all the way here from the male side of the prison. Jolyne suddenly sees that John Garley is above Jotaro, so he uses Star Platinum to blow open gas pipes, burning out the sniper. As Jolyne looks for Emporio, she realized he's vanished. Jotaro then asks, "Who are you looking for?" as he only saw her enter the room by herself. As Jolyne explains, she notices Jotaro's shoulder wound is gone and that her own wounds are gone, and now John Garley's body is the guard's corpse. Jotaro then says he doesn't know who John Garley is, as it turns out she was hallucinating the whole time, with the walls covered in white slime. It seems holding tightly onto the bone cut into her skin, waking her up from the dream. So everything since Jotaro noticed the cigarette has been a dream. However, she can't use the string to wake Jotaro up, so uses Stone Free to break the table, waking her dad. She asks her dad to use Star Platinum to break the door down. Jotaro then asks, "How do you know my Stan's name?" He then realizes he was asleep and wakes up where Jolyne had used strings to wrap around his face. Jotaro asks his daughter to summon her Stan and he punches it, sending Jolyne flying into the door, breaking it. What nice fatherly love. Jolyne pulls Jotaro out of the room, but the alarm goes off. Jotaro says that with the help of the Speedwagon Foundation, they can escape in a submarine. However, a mysterious stand with white slime watches them, the one who caused the dreams. So they go to escape, and Jotaro reveals the amulet is a fragment of the stand arrow. But Jolyne is still mad at how Jotaro doesn't act like a father. However, they are followed by John Garley disguised as a guard. Jotaro says for Jolyne to run while he will fight. Jotaro stops time as John Garley shoots and notices another stand behind him, this being the ringleader. As then he goes to save his daughter, the stand appears and removes 2 discs from Jotaro's face, this stand being Whitesnake. As John Garley shoots, yet Jotaro now stands motionless. Jolyne blocks the bullets, however Jotaro is hit multiple times. He does manage to tell her that there is another stand and to take the amulet and escape. There is a transmitter in the amulet that will draw the submarine to you, and before she leaves, he says that he always did care for her. Jolyne now realizes the Star Platinum was stolen from him, which is why he couldn't dodge the bullets. John Garley shoots again, but Jolyne redirects them with string and tangles him up before punching his face as Jotaro collapses. She drags his body outside looking for the sub and just manages to see it. However, Jotaro's body is submerged in the water limply with no strength. She realizes his heart has stopped and goes to resuscitate, but the guard dogs find her. However, as the guards arrive, Jolyne slipped behind them, disarming with the strings before putting her hands up and surrendering. She uses a string to then communicate to Emporio, who says how Whitesnake used his ability to steal Star Platinum. So Jolyne believes to save her father's life, she has to get his stand back. And Emporio says that the bone he gave her was his mother's, who was killed by Whitesnake. And Jolyne had put Jotaro in the sub, which will automatically return back to Speedwagon HQ. Now we see John Garley with Whitesnake gloating how they took Jotaro's disc. But since John Garley knows Whitesnake's stand user, Whitesnake silences the sniper. So the new plan is to not escape the wacky prison, but retrieve Jotaro's stand and memory disc. Without it, he's just a husk. However, 5 years are added to her sentence and she's now sent to solitary confinement for a few weeks. On the other hand, we swap to Ermes, whose money is stolen while she sleeps. But she's in the sick bay as she remembers picking up the amulet which cut her hand and then selling it to Gwes. And this gives her a high fever. But now on her hand is a sticker, and when she peels it off and throws it, it sticks to the shoe, but pulling it off reveals a third shoe, and looking back at her hand, she now has 6 fingers. She removes the sticker and the extra item merge back together, leaving only a small laceration. This continues with other objects. It duplicates anything it touches, but when the sticker is removed, they snap back to the original, leaving only small damage. So she uses this power to get back at the janitor, who she knows was stealing her money, and using a mop knocks him unconscious. But now 2 discs appear from his face. She hides as the janitor wakes up and walks away. Ermes manages to steal one of the discs and checks it out. It seems to show the janitor's memory of when he got a stand from Whitesnake. The janitor's name is Thunder McQueen.
Cujoh!
The disc slowly begins to go into Ermes' face, but she pulls it out. Now Thunder is aware of Ermes' research into him, asking all the guards, and confronts her. However, Ermes asks about the disc and he begins to cry. She asks if he is okay, and he's thrilled a woman cares about him and says he would like to marry a girl like her. However, he realizes he's a redditor, so that will never happen, so he hangs himself with his belt. And at the same time, things appear around Ermes' neck, lifting her up. Her memory disc falls into the toilet as Thunder's stand causes her to experience the same death as him. Ermes uses a sticker to break free, which also saves McQueen, who has been depressed ever since coming into prison. He says he will speak to the doctor, but then immediately goes to drown himself with his stand Highway to Hell, going to drown Ermes. She again uses the stickers to free herself and McQueen, and he begs her to let him die as he's pathetic. She says stay away from her and grabs the disc from the toilet. As she heads back to prison, she notices Emporio, who says Stan uses a drawn together and throws a ball at her. However, it phases through her, hitting a wall and squeezing through into a secret room. Emporio says he's been secretly living here since birth and was told by Jolyne to watch over Ermes. He then pulls it into the gap in the wall where they appear in a large room with two people already there. They just ignore Ermes. Emporio explains that this is a ghost room, and his stand lets him interact with ghost objects. He also explains Jolyne's whole father deal, and she needs Ermes' help to get back at Whitesnake. Ermes then shows him the memory disc she grabbed. Emporio then explains how there are two discs, one for memories, one for stands, but suddenly cuts appear on Ermes' arms as McQueen is doing the usual again before electrocution starts. However, it then suddenly stops, and Emporio says McQueen would go after salt water to make the electricity work, and running to the medical room to see McQueen wrapped in wires pouring water on himself. Ermes tells him what a stand is, and McQueen says how 4 years ago he was cleaning a shotgun, but it went off and the bullet shot out the window but killed a girl who was jumping from the roof. So it was ruled he killed her. Ermes tries to reason with him to stop what he's doing, but McQueen realizes her plan. He electrocutes them both. However, Ermes was able to put a sticker on his face, duplicating his head. The sticker burns off with the electricity, causing both heads to snap back together, knocking him out, and with the stand disc ripe for the taking. And now Ermes will join Jolyne's cause. Now in the prison's farm barn, two prisoners try and fail to escape a monster, which eats one of them. Loco Barocco back in prison says that a search team will look for the two, and 5 prisoners volunteer, including Jolyne and Ermes. The guards put bracelets on the inmates which will explode if tampered with, or if they get 50 meters away from the accompanying guard. Ermes, who watched the disc memory multiple times, believes that getting Jotaro's disc back will revive him, and Jolyne makes her watch it again, and in the McQueen reflection, we see a tractor, and inside a stash of stand discs. So Whitesnake is collecting stands and hiding them there, so that if we find this tractor, we can save her dad. So after some bumbling around, they find the tractor in the barn, but the guard says to search the swamp and drives his ATV there. They will have to follow or they will explode with the bracelets. Ermes, however, is scared, saying that there are now 6 prisoners including them. Some person joined and they don't know who it is. However, the bracelet beeps as they see the ATV missing the guard and there's blood all around, meaning his body probably washed into the water, as one of the prisoners' bracelets explodes. So they hurriedly search for the guard and find his body, and in the commotion, Ermes is dragged into the water, which seems to be plankton that can multiply and strangle her. She breaks free and warns Jolyne to stay out of the water, so Jolyne makes a string net to run on. This stand is called Foo Fighters, and begins to fight Jolyne, as the two barely escape back to land. The other prisoners use the radio to call the prison, and remember they don't see Stan, so have no idea what the two are doing in the water. However, one of them has a nosebleed, which could be from when Jolyne punched Foo Fighters. Jolyne, speeding up the process, goes to knock all 3 out to find the user. However, their eyes turn black and they talk in unison. They talk about Whitesnake and wanting to get the 2 discs. Foo Fighters then appears from their bodies, who explain that it created this body out of the missing prisoner and possessed the other 2 when they went to search the tractor. It says its job is to guard Whitesnake's stand disc. Ermes says to run away from the water, and Jolyne realizes that this is the stand. It's the user and stand in one, being the massive plankton. FF then goes sicko mode, explaining philosophy, and runs to the barn to hide the disc. However, another part of it is still in the water, which grabs the guard to drag him further away so that the bracelets will explode. Jolyne tells Ermes to handle the water one as she runs into the barn. Ermes uses her stand kiss to stick her arm and grab the guard and run to Jolyne so she doesn't explode. However, FF splashes water onto her to jump to her. FF pins Ermes to the ground, so Ermes grabs the other inmate's corpse, using the stickers to explode the body to dust, which dries out the double, allowing Ermes to run with the guard into the barn. Jolyne asks FF if it knows who Whitesnake is, but it says it doesn't know. FF goes to Jolyne to attack, but this was a distraction as Jolyne uses strings to start the engine of the tractor, driving it out into the open. FF runs to it, drying up, losing its body parts, being so weak when it reaches the tractor. Ermes goes to kill it, but Jolyne stops her and gives it water, believing it only protects the disc as its only identity. It only exists for that. Jolyne then makes a deal saying it can live only if they help fight Whitesnake, and you can still protect the disc, just do it for us. So FF joins the team. Jolyne finds her dad's stand disc and puts it into herself to control Star Platinum, but her body rejects it as it's too powerful for her. She is happy though she can use this to save her dad, but still needs the memory disc. FF now possesses the dead girl's corpse so they can walk on land, and to live they really need a lot of water. FF says Whitesnake rarely comes to the barn, and the discs here are only the ones it doesn't need. Even if a stand is so strong, it's useless without the right user. Whitesnake only needed Jotaro's memory disc. However, the guards come in and capture the three. Later, Whitesnake is in the barn wondering about Jolyne, who he only used as bait to draw Jotaro to the prison, but is worried about her abilities. As we see who the user of the stand is, it's the prison's priest. Now in the prison courtyard, FF sees someone playing catch, so searches for a baseball. FF also has hidden Jotaro's stand disc, and only they know where it is. FF is also very protective of water as they need it to live. Now inside the prison, Father Enrico Pucci speaks with Mirashon. He makes a JoJo reference before saying humans are better than animals because they desire to go to heaven, and slams her head onto the desk to insert two discs into her. In the courtyard, Jolyne teaches FF how to throw a ball, but it's about to hit Mirashon's head. Jolyne then saves it, but Mirashon makes a bet that Jolyne can get $100 if she catches the ball 100 times. However, they already caught it 87 times, so we need a few more to win. So they accept, with the rule being you can only hold it for 10 seconds, and with some bad throws, Jolyne had to use her string to catch the ball at the last minute. And eventually they reach 100. Mirashon then says, how about $1,000 if you can do it another 100 times? Ermes accepts and plays with FF. However, after 30, they have to go back inside. Mirashon though says the game still has to continue, so they bribe the guard to let them throw for a few more minutes. However, the guard grabs Ermes' club, saying the bribe only covers the ball. Ermes still catches the ball, but using Kiss's stickers, and deep down Ermes knows she cheated, and due to that feeling, Mirashon's stand appears, the debt collector. It takes Ermes' money, but it's not enough, so removes her gold teeth and keeps going to get money, not being able to be fought. It continues collecting things like a liver to sell on the black market and cannot be stopped until the debt is paid. Jolyne then picks up the ball to challenge Marilyn Manson, that is the name of the stand, to another bet. 1,000 catches for everything that it took from Ermes. So Jolyne and FF begin the game, but Jolyne says the goal is actually to get to Mirashon, who has run away into the prison. In the shower room, Mirashon turns off the lights, but they hear her in the room, so FF shoots their ability, which uses a self-made gun, to hit Mirashon in the arm, as they chase her out of the shower, while the prison prepares for a daily lockdown. Jolyne corners Mirashon, but it turns out to be an elevator, trapping both inside. With 10 seconds running out, FF barely manages to throw the ball through the elevator, and Jolyne uses Stone Free to unravel it and fit it through the gate, and Jolyne says it's not cheating, because even if a ball explodes and you still catch it, it's still out in a real game of baseball. I mean, I guess. Mirashon begs for mercy and returns the liver to Ermes, but when Jolyne asks for the money, a guard appears and takes the ball, revealing he was paid by Mirashon to interrupt the game. So Marilyn steals Jolyne's organs, including Jotaro's stand disc from FF. However, Jolyne whacks Mirashon 1,000 times with the ball, with a string pulling it back, which fulfills the bet of playing catch 1,000 times, and Jolyne wins. Now, using the money she got from Mirashon, Jolyne pays an inmate to get the phone to call the Speedwagon Foundation, who says they have Jotaro's body, but it shows no signs of life. She says that she has his stand disc but needs help to escape. They say to go to the prison courtyard in 20 minutes with the disc and they can retrieve it. Look for Savage Garden. Emporio directs Jolyne to the music room where Weather Report is waiting. He doesn't talk much. Emporio shows her a map on how to get to the courtyard, and you need permission to enter. So Jolyne instead will use force and take Weather Report with her, who is quiet because he has no memories of anything before coming to the prison. His stand is also named Weather Report, and he can control the weather. Not gonna lie, that sounds like a stupidly overpowered stand. But now Jolyne sees an enemy stalking them. They all run away, but the user called Lang Wrangler spits on the ground, increasing his speed. The trio hide in the ghost room with a jacket hanging on the wall as Emporia goes over the plan. Weather will enter the factory first and meet Jolyne. They will then enter the courtyard by force and hand the stand to Savage Garden. Weather goes first before Jolyne is able to bribe the guard. However, now in the next room, she realizes everything she touches loses gravity, and she is unable to use her string in 0G. Lang Wrangler then appears and grabs the floating disc. He breaks it in half, but it just reforms. Realizing it can't be destroyed, he decides to return it to Whitesnake, leaving Jolyne floating there. Jolyne manages to throw a cup and attach a string to it to call out for Weather Report, her voice traveling along the string. Weather goes after Lang, who summons his stand, Jumpin' Jack Flash, which shoots screws and bolts at Weather, but Weather is able to use his stand to deflect them. This fight triggers an alarm as the gates begin to close. Lang uses his stand and suction cup abilities with 0G to slip past. Weather grabs Jolyne, who still turns everything she touches weightless due to Lang's abilities. But using Weather's abilities, he pushes them past the gate into the laundry right before the factory. Jolyne, though, suddenly has to pee. And we get a very detailed explanation of why, due to gravity, the kidneys are more active to get rid of excess salt due to thinning blood.
What?
However, anything Jolyne touches gets 0G, as they notice the blood and air around them zooming away, making it harder to breathe as Lang reveals himself. Now we cut to Pucci asking the guard about the laundry room, but there aren't any cameras there. He then sees a log of outgoing calls and requests to listen to the call Jolyne made. Now back in the laundry room, everything that's weightless is being sucked through the holes in the wall. Lang keeps launching projectiles, which Jolyne deflects. Weather then creates cloud suits for them to breathe in as they hide. Weather finds him on the other side of the room, but is shot at with projectiles. However, Lang wasn't aiming for him, but rather a barrel filled with air, and it explodes, ripping through Weather's suit. Lang then shoots rats, exploding their blood, blinding Jolyne, who rushes to Weather. And now Lang shoots even more projectiles, piecing her suit as they lie motionless in the air. Lang, gloating, suddenly notices strings wrapped around him, which are tied to the projectiles around Jolyne, showing that none of them hit her. Jolyne reveals she hid the strings amongst his ammo, and now uses it to pull Lang towards her. Without a cloud suit, Lang's blood begins to boil in 0G, but before he can die, Lang creates oxygen by mixing peroxide and magnesium dioxide. I swear he's pulling this stuff out of his... He throws the bottle at Jolyne, which destroys her suit, but Weather gives his suit to her, and now in order to escape, Lang releases the 0G, forcing in air. However, this air pushes him towards Jolyne, who pummels him with her stand and gets the disc back. Now they wonder how they'll get into the courtyard. Weather says there's a revolving door, and Jolyne uses Lang's entry pass to scan on the door. Weather is weak though, so he goes to hide, as a voice asks on the other side if this is Lang. As we see, it's Pucci. Believing it to be Lang, he says to return to the chapel with him. With no answer, Pucci turns to see Jolyne instead. Jolyne recognizes him as the priest and begs to not set off the alarm. But Pucci asks, why are you using Lang's pass? Jolyne, not knowing this is Whitesnake, says Lang assaulted her and she hit back in self-defense, and to let her go to the courtyard only for a minute. Pucci asks if she's alone, and Jolyne lies, saying yes. Pucci then thinks, okay, performing acts of kindness without asking for anything in return is a way of reaching heaven, so he agrees. However, he then senses someone behind the barrel and lets her pass so that her ally won't suspect him of being Whitesnake. Jolyne then enters the yard, seeing a lone man who reveals himself to be a guard and asks if she had permission. Before Jolyne can answer, he shoots her in the chest, as we see discs inserted in his head. We see Pucci recall a conversation he had with his old friend Dio in 1988, who told him of a way to reach heaven. Not the afterlife, but a state of ascension where one can achieve true happiness. Pucci asked how, and Dio says he wrote it in a diary. However, in 1989, Jotaro found the book and destroyed it. But now with Jotaro's memory disc, Pucci was able to read the diary's contents. Back in the present, the guard shoots Jolyne again, Weather is too injured to do anything, as Pucci heads to the chapel, since he's happy the guard will take care of this for him. While the guard approaches Jolyne, he notices a frog landing on his hand, as suddenly it's raining frogs. Weather Report made it so poison dart frogs rain down into the courtyard. The frogs poison the guard and also fall around Pucci. Pucci uses Whitesnake to keep them away, but his ID falls under the frogs, meaning he can't get out, and realizes that this is the stand Weather Report, and that the person who has it should have lost their memories. In the yard, we see Jolyne still alive, keeping the frogs off her with a net, but the poison is slowly seeping through. Pucci, on the other hand, hand, begins counting prime numbers to calm himself down. The guard he commanded begs for help before dying as another guard appears, confused by all this. Pucci tries to get him to open the gate, but he runs away in fear. Pucci makes a disc, kicks a frog, and throws the disc into the frog. He commands it to explode after 10 meters, damaging the guard. Pucci guides the blinded guard to the gate to use his ID to open it as he walks off, leaving the guard to die. Whitesnake then enters the yard to find Jotaro's stand disc. Pucci is able to hide in the prison using its very long range. It finds Jolyne's body, however Jolyne was faking death just for Whitesnake to appear. As Whitesnake goes to kill her, the Speedwagon messenger named Savage Garden, a pigeon, appears with Jolyne attaching the disc to it with string. Whitesnake grabs the guard's gun to shoot the pigeon, but it's empty, so the stand flees before more guards arrive. Now FF helps heal Jolyne by filling the woods with plankton, as Jolyne asks where Ermes is, and FF reveals that Ermes went to prison on purpose, that her sister Gloria, who owned their father's restaurant, Ermes didn't want to help out and ran away. That night Gloria went to look for her sister, but instead witnessed a murder and called the police. A week later, her corpse was found dead. The killer was Sports Max, and Ermes purposefully entered the prison to enact revenge. Who we now see is watching Sports Max in the chapel, speaking with Pucci. Jolyne and FF follow her, but Jolyne believes she should deal with the problem, but will stop Ermes becoming a murderer. Sports Max walks past and sees a photo of Gloria grabbing it. Ermes is happy he remembers and shows that it was held to the wall with the sticker, and since he removed it, the pipes above begin to merge back to one, sealing Max within. He begins to suffocate but summons his stand, Limp Bizkit. Yes, you heard me. When now an invisible bird seemingly attacks Ermes. She covers the bird with a jacket and crushes it as a taxidermy corpse of a bird falls apart on the table. Ermes suspects Max got his stand from Whitesnake, and she now notices a stuffed alligator fallen over, as then an invisible alligator chases her. FF and Jolyne now appear with FF getting bit on the leg. The leg is torn from her body as Ermes warns them about an invisible alligator zombie. Ermes says don't worry, when Max dies the stand will die, so they just gotta wait for him to suffocate. However, the stand keeps attacking. FF lets a hand get bitten and inside the mouth shoots and kills a zombie. And now looking at the pipe, they see it's busted open with Max missing. Max then heads to the chapel to find the body that Whitesnake wanted him to look for. However, he gets distracted and tries to flirt with a girl, touching her, but the girl gets upset at a nearby inmate and yells at them. They have no idea what she's talking about because they don't realize Max is even there. The three back of the pipe realize that Limp Bizkit revives dead things and makes them part of the stand, which means Max died in the pipe but is now revived as an invisible human zombie, hence why the girl can't see him. And to prove that point, Max bites the girl's brain. He remembers his death and swears vengeance against Ermes. Jolyne and Ermes try to find him, and using strings find an invisible body and kill it. However, they notice the real girl's body burst, which means what they were fighting was the girl zombie. Max attacks Jolyne and in the prison's graveyard has summoned more former inmates as zombies. Jolyne decides to flee with Ermes, but Ermes wants her revenge and stands her ground. The zombie bites a chunk of Ermes' head off, but this was a duplicate, as she works out where Max is and attacks. He says he knew she would do this and removed his head from his body, so her attack misses. Max then pulls the sticker off her head, causing it to re-merge. However, Ermes was planning for this, and the duplicate of her head that Max bit into tears through his mouth, returning back to her, and she beats him to zombie death as Ermes avenges Gloria. Now, due to Jolyne's many injuries and weird deaths surrounding her, she is sent to the Ultra Security House Unit, where she only gets one meal a day and a shower, and nothing else. The food is infested and the male prisoners get all riled up when a woman is near them. Jolyne, however, is undeterred and focused on saving her dad. As we see a flashback of Whitesnake with Max, asking him to use his stand to revive a bone. Max is unsure if he can do it, but Whitesnake threatens him. Max then says he's already done it. Whitesnake looks down to see a hole in his hand as Pucci screams, his hand bleeding. However, he wants to see where the bone is headed. Now it's got a mind of its own. Max says he feels it's heading towards the Supermax area. Now we see Emporia watching that memory, and FF says Jolyne already saw it, and that's why she agreed to go to that ward to find the bone. FF though is worried for Jolyne and asks Emporia to save her. He says there's no way with Weather in hospital. However, there is still that pink-haired man named Anasui. But Emporia says he won't help due to his past, how he would disassemble things as a kid, and at 21 disassembled his G BF and the person she slept with, i.e. he's a psychopath. However, Anasui agrees randomly only if FF gets Jolyne to agree to marry him. He runs out with his stand diver down, which can store punches or kicks into objects to later release them whenever he wants. As we see Jolyne in a cell, however the two guards who check on her begin to fight. First calmly, then incredibly aggressively, with the winning guard Westwood challenging everyone in the ward to a fight. As we see Pucci realizing Max is dead and wonders how to kill Jolyne with the 4 stand users he put into the ward before she gets the bone. Also, that bone is from Dio. As we see another flashback where Dio says the worst stand user is probably Survivor, whose only ability is to make those around it fight to the death, which is what's happening in this ward. As Westwood frees all the inmates to fight them, Jolyne's resolve is that she'll kill anyone for the bone, which shocks her, and how the stand is making everyone more bloodthirsty as Westwood charges at her. And what I can only describe as the craziest MMA fight, where due to the stand, they can see each other's weak point. Meanwhile, Anasui and FF sneak into the ward, where FF makes it clear they need to defeat Whitesnake's minions, and Anasui accepts this is what it takes to get Jolyne to marry him. As we see that Westwood is also a stand user, making Jolyne more cautious as another ability she doesn't know about. He grabs it in a chokehold and she finally realizes what his stand is: planet waves, which summons meteorites towards him, but they burn away just before they hit Westwood. These meteorites though cause major wounds on Jolyne, and due to Survivor, Westwood can see how weak she is now, but Jolyne notices an inmate picking up a mysterious bone. Jolyne manages to grab Westwood's boot and capture the meteor in it, which then flies to hit Westwood. The meteorite burns up, but the boot still has the force and fire, hitting Westwood, where Jolyne finally knocks him unconscious. She then tries to find the bone, but sees that inmate bloat up and fall to the ground. 20 other prisoners all bloated as she sees 2 men approach her. So all the prisoners are dead except these 2 in the ward. One, an old man called Kenzo, who says he drowned the prisoners. However, Jolyne isn't alone as FF appears, who is hiding inside one of the prisoners' bloated bodies. FF says she will heal Jolyne after she stops Kenzo. However, FF can't even hit Kenzo, who is using his stand to predict her attacks. Kenzo counters by making FF drown. However, FF is Plankton, who can't drown. She frees herself from the trap, and we see Kenzo's busted stand, called Dragon's Dream, which is neutral, meaning it won't actually fight and can't be hit, and it talks to people. However, it tells Kenzo through Feng Shui where the best points are to attack and the luckiest spots to stand in to not get hit. And if you put your body in the dragon sphere, it disappears, hitting an unlucky spot on your opponent before flying back to the person. However, FF has tricks too, and even though the body it inhabits is dead, she can still fight since the plankton is still alive. But she needs water to keep living and tries to go to a hose. However, in an unlucky spot, gets knocked down to the execution chamber, where she gets trapped on the electric chair through her bad feng shui. However, before she gets electrocuted, she used Kenzo's sweat to make a mirror of the dragon so that Kenzo was talking to the wrong thing and stands in the wrong spot, unlucky for his feng shui. As FF grabs him, sending the vaults to him. Anasui recommends leaving FF behind, but Jolyne disagrees and tries to stumble down, though very weak. As Jolyne sees the dragon alive, meaning Kenzo is also still alive because he was standing in a safe spot. However, Jolyne finds some plankton in water still alive. They were in the same spot as him. She uses her string to send the plankton to the girl's body as Kenzo goes to finish Jolyne, but his attack sends him upwards, then back down, as Anasui uses Diver Down attached inside Jolyne's body, so when Kenzo struck her, Diver took apart his leg bones and put them back in a spring formation, meaning Kenzo now kicks the bucket. I think he's still alive somehow. Back at the Speedwagon Foundation, Jotaro is alive, but has no real will to live since he only got his stand and no memories, and will slowly die without that memory disc. However, he manages to cut the words Jolyne into his arms. Back in prison, FF heals Jolyne as her name appears on her arm. Somehow. And this makes Jolyne realize her father did care for her, but only stayed distant to protect her and her mother, so the trio exit the execution chamber, as Jolyne finds a prisoner holding onto Dio's bone, but they see the man gruesomely transform into a plant, as all the bloated inmates do the same. Elsewhere, the final stand user in the ward, D&G, finds the bone. He doesn't pick it up because he realizes touching it makes you transform into that plant thing, as we see flowers sprout from Jolyne. Anasui says the bone is causing this as they find the bone near a root, but it rolls away. Now flowers spurt from Jolyne, but Anasui uses Diver Down to push the plants out. However, he can't remove them completely. He pulls it to the shade where the effects are lessened, and looking for the bone, they instead find it's turned into a green-shaped baby with a star-shaped birthmark. Jolyne picks up the baby as they look for an escape route, but they find Cujoh, who is just a scared inmate, and leave him be. D&G watching walks past Cujoh and grabs his shoulder, but Cujoh transforms into a plant and this pierces D&G's arm, rendering him unable to fight. This happens while the trio escape outside. Now suddenly we see Jolyne and Anasui with Yo-Yo Ma, who tells them how to start a boat, as FF recalls how Yo-Yo Ma just appeared as they exited the ward and swallowed the baby whole. They couldn't get it back no matter how hard they tried. He says it's been a while since he saw his stand user named D&G. The gang are all suspicious of it, so FF goes to assassinate the user while Anasui and Jolyne watch over it. However, with Anasui's back turned, it seems Yo-Yo Ma's spit melted FF's mouth as they drive away. FF decides the best course of action is to kill the user quickly. The boat group, however, get chased by prison guards on another boat, and in the commotion, Yo-Yo Ma sends mosquitoes from his mouth into Jolyne's face. The group steals the guard's boat as Jolyne now can't talk as her tongue is filled with holes. She tries and fails to get Anasui to understand what's happening, but the dude has a one-track mind. She, as her mouth melts, uses the strings to convince him as he finally goes to help. Meanwhile, FF searches for D&G, who is held by the guards. FF goes to shoot him but notices Pucci watching from afar. On the boat, Anasui learns that Yo-Yo Ma's stand is automatic and will not stop until Jolyne is dead. However, Anasui, when he attacks Yo-Yo Ma's head, uses Diver Down to implant a frog onto the stand's brain, making Yo-Yo act like a frog. And now they can just wait for FF to kill the user. FF weighs the options and goes to kill D&G. Meanwhile, Pucci goes to the guards to interrogate D&G so he can learn about what happened in the ward. However, the guard was actually FF, holding D&G hostage. Pucci panics since he needs him alive. FF shoots D&G, but a guard with a disc makes a miss. FF then realizes Pucci is Whitesnake. FF is scared of losing her intelligence and all the memories she made, and while Pucci distracts her, Whitesnake sneaks up behind her and attacks her head. FF shoots her head with the gun, which tricks Pucci as the target was not herself, but rather D&G, killing him. And now she uses the plankton to grab the disc and drive the ambulance, but she's running extremely low on water. Elsewhere, the two see Yo-Yo Ma die since D&G is dead, and find the green baby is now alive and running away. Jolyne sews her tongue back with strings as they chase after it before Whitesnake can reach it. But now they see the baby's power, in that every time they move closer to it, their sives halve exponentially, meaning they can never reach it. However, after a crazy fight battling physics, the baby suddenly is intrigued by Jolyne's star on her back and stops attacking. Back with FF, she tries to go to enforce it, but Pucci attacks her and asks what did she see what was born from the bone. FF distracts him with non-answers and uses her other half to get to the water. However, Pucci reveals he put a disc into her that makes any water she touches boil, as FF screams and disintegrates. Pucci retrieves FF's disc and hears the radio ask for FF. He answers asking who's on the other line. It's weather report. Whitesnake realizes FF asked for weather to make it rain so that she could reform, as we see FF's torso starting to crawl away slowly. As fog gathers, FF sends Morse code to weather, which Pucci decodes. But it is too late to be able to stop FF telling weather who Pucci is, as we see in the mist weather approaching FF and asking where Jolyne is. Now we see later FF crawling to meet Jolyne and Anasui as she says that Whitesnake is Pucci and goes to fix up Jolyne. However, it turns out Weather is Whitesnake in disguise, as he impales Anasui and cuts FF in half before impaling Jolyne as well. Yes, Whitesnake can apparently disguise itself as people now. Pucci appears delighted he's closer to heaven, but Jolyne is still alive and uses her arm to tie up Pucci's hands, handcuffing his wrist to her own. Pucci says, "You're within range for me to grab your stand disc," as we see a flashback of Pucci and Dio. Dio asking if Pucci will betray him, saying, "You could just take my stand at any time." Pucci says he would never do such a thing. Dio, feeling sorry, gave him his bone he ripped out of his hand. Back in the present, Pucci grabs Jotaro's memory disc and throws it in Anasui, so she now has to decide whether to grab that disc before it's lost forever or fight Pucci. She pummels Pucci, then runs to grab the disc. Pucci recites 14 words to the baby and the bone slides out of his hand. The baby eats his arm and drags him into the grass. Now the disc goes into Anasui's dying body, meaning it will die with him. But Anasui, with Diver Down, calls out to FF's dying spirit to beg her to take over his body. FF though comes out of his body, healing him and removing the disc at the cost of its life, as it says farewell to Jolyne forever. We now see Pucci back in prison, slightly different with a star mark, as we see in a flashback Jotaro reading Dio's diary, and that to attain heaven, Pucci has to go to a specific location in Florida. As we see Pucci finally leaving the prison. Jolyne declares to Emporio she will escape the prison, however Emporio says it's impossible as the exit is extremely well guarded, as we see a woman guard walk down with a stand. This is Mew Mew, who says her orders are to kill Jolyne if she escapes, alongside Anasui and Weather. Jolyne goes to attack, but suddenly is back in her cell with Gwes. She sees her own handwriting on her body and can't remember what happened. This is Jailhouse Rock, Mew Mew's stand, as touching the cell bars makes her forget all memories apart from the 3 most recent things she learned, and any new thing she learns pushes the oldest one of these memories out, meaning she's essentially trapped forever as she's constantly learning new things, pushing old memories away. This also affects Emporio, who is stuck in the ghost room, constantly electrocuting himself. Thus begins a long chase to figure out how to escape, including Jolyne learning she can turn her entire body into string, and to defeat Mew Mew, they recreate a picture of her in binary to remember who the enemy is so Jolyne can punch.
What?
Pucci, though outside, notices strange things happening around him, mostly due to time speeding up, as Jolyne and Emporio pick up Ermes to escape the prison, somehow. Outside, Pucci gets attacked by a patient, however, due to weird circumstances, is saved, and Pucci asks if he wants to join his grand plan. The man also has a star birthmark. In prison, Weather senses Jolyne escaped, as Anasui notices a star birthmark on Weather. Now somehow, these two also escape prison, and through some weird circumstances, encounter Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a worldwide stand that brings fictional characters to life. Yeah, there's a lot of copyright infringing going on here. The characters behave how they would in their own stories, and if you recognize a character you like, your soul is split from your own body and plays out the role of the character in question, living out their fate, dying in the same way as whatever story it came from. And the only way to defeat the user is by creating an original own character. So to defeat Ungalo the user, who was flying away from the two, Weather forces Van Gogh, who came to life from that earshot painting of his, to create a fictional character called Put Back, whose superpower is to force every character back into their stories. Ungalo, shocked at his defeat, enters a coma as his will to live disappears. Now while Bohemian Rhapsody is happening, we see Jolyne break into Romeo's house to get money and a vehicle. He says he's sorry, though Jolyne doesn't believe him, and tells Ermes to put a sticker on his tongue in case he says anything. And after leaving, she listens with strings as Romeo calls the police, but instead sends them on a wild goose chase, making Jolyne happy. However, Jolyne still rips his tongue off. While Pucci though is plotting with the other sons of Dio, people who have stars on their back, as that man really got around to eliminate Jolyne. One of them being Rikiel, who Pucci tells he can control sky fishes, or these rods, mysterious organism that is said to roam around Earth. He sends them after the 3 who crashed their heli they got from Romeo, as they have to fight him, and Emporio learns that the rods suck out body heat, which causes illness and can control your muscles that way. So to counter this, Jolyne sets herself on fire, protecting herself from the rods sucking the heat from her brainstem, and with this she defeats Rikiel. He then reveals that Weather is Pucci's younger brother, but Ermes knocks him out, refusing to listen to his lies, as the 3 head for Orlando. In Orlando, they find the hospital Pucci is in. They leave Emporio outside so he can give the Speedwagon Foundation Jotaro's memory disc. At the same time, Anasui and Weather also enter. Pucci is with one of Dio's sons, Donatello Versus, whose stand Underworld excavates memories of events and people from the past through the assumption that the ground contains the memories of anything that happened upon it. And he can trap people in these memories, and it stores all of them in an illusory cavern under the hospital. As Jolyne and Ermes follow in to find themselves trapped on a plane, doomed to crash. While Pucci and Versus are standing outside. Versus also gets very cocky at his ability and believes as the son of Dio he should receive his ability for himself instead, as he secretly unearths a memory of Pucci, then grabs the memory disc of Weather Report from the priest in secret. However, with Ermes' sticker duplication, she hides herself inside the body of the plane survivors, and Jolyne hides herself as String inside Ermes' mouth. Yes, that is bizarre. And they pummel Versus and make sure he doesn't touch the ground, while they confront Pucci, who doesn't want to help Versus, so Versus sends Underworld to run away with Weather Report's disc, and he says he will give it to Weather to revive his memories, which angers Pucci, as we see Weather getting his memories back. Now with his memories, Weather is a changed man, extremely aggressive, killing staff at the hospital, saying he will kill his brother, confusing Anasui. Versus says Weather's true ability is to influence the ozone layer, and Pucci says they must kill Weather, otherwise they will all die, as he and Versus run away. While they see the effects of his stand, which now causes people to turn into snails, as somehow he is affecting the ozone layer and causing all of this. Versus is now looking for Jotaro's memory disc from Emporio. Ermes is slowly turning into a snail, as we see Weather's backstory. So 40 years ago, a woman's newborn died in her arms, which made her secretly swap the dead son in the hospital with another baby, who happened to have a twin brother with a twisted foot. This was Pucci, who in the church later sees an intruder who is Dio, as he asks to stay because he hates the sunlight. And for his generosity, Dio heals Pucci's foot and gives him an arrowhead. This is the object that creates stands. As we see Pucci in this life happy and rich with a sister named Perla. However, he does wonder why did his twin have to die and not him. But during a confession, that same woman admits to what she did and he realizes what happened. Now learning his actual twin brother is still alive, being adopted by the woman. At the same time, Perla and Wes Blue Marine get engaged. Pucci then learns that Wes is his long lost brother, and so determined to end this unknowingly horrendous relation, but not hurting his sister, he paid a private eye to break them up. Unfortunately, they were part of a white supremacist organization against interracial couples, so they kill Wes in front of Perla, who with grief throws herself off a cliff. However, Wes was still actually alive, with the noose breaking, saving his life. Pucci mourns his sister and wishes to see her again, and hears Dio's voice reminding him of gravity, and from Perla a memory disc appears, as though arrow stabs his throat, giving him the stand, Whitesnake, while Wes also at the same time acquires a stand. Later, Wes kills the private eye, and then tries to do the same to himself, but Weather Report prevents him from dying, so he is filled with rage against everything, which causes Snail to rain down in their city. Wes then confronts Pucci, reveals that they are siblings, and in the confusion, steal Wes's memories, and seals away Heavy Weather, the automatic stand that activates when Wes is angry and has memories. Now back in the present, Jolyne and Ermes are trying to catch up to Versus as the snail outbreak continues. Versus finds Emporio and his ghost bag with the memory disc, while Jolyne and Ermes turn into snails, but since Versus touched Jolyne, he also turns into a snail. Weather asks Anasui to kill him to stop this snail weather nonsense, however Pucci surprises them, seemingly not hurt by the snails, as Anasui gets infected. Pucci says that heavy weather modifies the atmosphere into influencing humans to believe that they are snails, and the mind makes it happen. However, since it's based on sunlight, Pucci blinded himself to stop turning into one. But Weather uses his stand to freeze his blood, trapping Pucci in a maze of spikes. Pucci uses Whitesnake, poking his hand into Anasui's head to make him reveal the locations of the spikes so he can walk out unhurt. However, Weather, not caring for his life, drags himself to Pucci and beats him up, saying he is the most evil thing. But suddenly a car crash interrupts the fight. It's Versus with Jolyne, Ermes, and Emporio. However, in all the commotion, Pucci escapes, not before punching Weather through the chest, killing him. Everyone's bodies return back to normal, and Pucci escapes after killing Versus. Jolyne sees Weather's corpse and blames herself for all these deaths, as they see Weather had left his stand disc for them to use. The group now head to Cape Canaveral to stop Pucci, who is already at the Kennedy Space Center. He, however, suddenly sees objects around him are being pulled sideways, as this power continues now to our group on the road, with it tilting where it seems like gravity is now sideways, as everyone holds onto the railings, while Ermes gets trapped and disappears into the horizon. He thinks Ariake had to nerf the team before the big finale. Anyway, we see Pucci walk on walls as his stand evolves due to that green baby fusing with him. The gang eventually catch up but don't find Pucci, but instead come face to face with his new stand, Sea Moon, which turns Jolyne's hand inside out. Now in the fight, anything Sea Moon touches turns inside out, as it reverses gravity of objects it touches. But if it touches the object again, it reverses that effect. So after a fight, Pucci appears, and Jolyne goes to attack, but she can't reach him, floating away. As he explains, he's the center of a new gravity, and the moment she gets close, she would fall away. He punches the vital organs and walks off. However, as Emporio and Anasui cry out, the kid gets a text from Jotaro, who says, "My dad senses tingling," as Anasui goes to confront Pucci. However, it's not actually him, he used Diver Down to change how a civilian looked before getting punched. Pucci literally turns his face bones away from the attack and then pummels Anasui. However, Jolyne now creeps around the priest, but he can't see where she is. She grabs him from behind and, to stop her arms from turning inside out, turns her strings into Mobius strips. You know, those infinite loop things that have no start and end, they can't be turned inside out. And any part that's hit, she turns into a strip. However, as Pucci uses a guard's gun to shoot, time stops as Jotaro and Ermes appear. She had used her stickers on a spear, making it double, then remerging the spear, flinging themselves past the gravity barrier to this point. Pucci, now surrounded, realizes he doesn't need the specified time or date for heaven, it just has to stimulate gravity. As he begins to float, he is looking for the exact gravitational effect to make him reach heaven. Jotaro tells Ermes to shoot Pucci, Seamoon deflects the bullet so Jotaro stops time and throws a spear to hit Pucci. Yet even though time is stopped, Pucci is so powerful he moves his eyes and avoids the attack. Pucci now being pushed further up, his body breaks down into light. However, Anasui rushes to him and goes to punch, but from his arm, Pucci says his new stand has awoken. A blinding light engulfs the Space Center, and sometime later, everyone is unharmed with gravity back to normal. And somehow they are 200 meters back, and Pucci has gone into hiding. However, they notice weird things. Rain starts and stops, elevators close and open so quickly, the rain dries up, the sun already setting, as we see time speeding up so fast around the world, with humans lagging behind at normal speed. And in this crazy moment, Anasui asks Jotaro permission to marry Jolyne.
What?
Pucci, however, isn't fighting, probably worried about Jotaro's time-stopped stand. Even though it's only a few seconds, it can still hurt him. But as they scan for Pucci, Jotaro sees something and stops time. But it's too late, as Pucci uses his stand to bend a tree to fling himself behind Jotaro and is too quick, slicing Jotaro's throat. However, it's a minor wound as Anasui used Diver Down to take most of the hit. Pucci now says his stand will guide humanity towards happiness, and everyone here will die. Emporio pulls out a ghost gun and shoots. Pucci dodges, but Ermes puts a sticker on the bullet, so him firing the duplicates and holding tightly onto the gun, with everyone grabbing onto him, they pull off the stickers, causing the bullets to re-merge together, flinging the group past Pucci into the ocean. Anasui says he will sacrifice himself for a plan to attack. Pucci, however, is so quick he's already waiting for them there, and the moving waves hide the location of the priest. Anasui is suddenly impaled, making Jotaro stop time. However, in this time stop, Jotaro sees that Pucci manipulated Jolyne's stand to kill Anasui, allowing the priest to run away from Jotaro's fist. Jotaro tries to reach him but sees knives falling around Jolyne. Pucci gloats, saying your daughter is your biggest weakness, as Jotaro can't catch him, pushing Jolyne out of the way as Pucci again disappears, with time restarting. Pucci then suddenly appears behind, cutting off Ermes' arms and splits Jotaro's head, killing them both. Jolyne was hit with one knife, so only Emporio is left, holding his gun against Pucci. Jolyne is still alive, however, and attacks Pucci before getting away. Furious, Pucci dives after them, but sees they are both tied to a dolphin that swims away at some crazy speed. He chases after them. Jolyne says the dolphin will carry Emporio to safety and sacrifices herself, letting go. She tries one more time to fight Pucci, but is too weak and dies as Emporio cries out. Time is now going super fast, and the earth speeds up to a void of light, and we see now Emporio is back in prison, and he finds Jolyne and Jotaro, but they are not the same people. You see Jolyne's bee tattoo and not a butterfly. Suddenly Pucci is there and says the universe has completed a full circle and a new age has begun. However, past interferences from the old world can't stay in the new one, so Emporio has to die. And characters like this Jolyne are not the same ones as the old ones. The old ones are long dead. Emporio runs for his life while Pucci talks about fate, as Emporio and these guards can see that one of them is going to trip and then does so as predicted. Pucci then says that by making humans live through the universe through accelerated time, he imprinted the knowledge of the future into their consciousness. So every human in this new second cycle knows what will happen to them after the first time around, and that this is happiness. Knowing your fate means you can accept it. Pucci explains he stopped time in the prison here to find out where Emporio would be, and asked him to accept death. Emporio runs, and Pucci realizes he has Weather Report's disc in his head, and now Emporio takes a stand, saying, "You pushing your arm into me, push the disc to give me the stand, defying your fate." Pucci accelerates time again and goes to kill Emporio, but the priest suddenly suddenly is blind as he begins to bleed out of his eyes. Emporio says he used weather report to make the air 100% oxygen, which is poisonous, and he begins to punch the priest's head. Pucci begs for his life. Emporio says that walking the path of justice is a true fate, and weather pummels the priest into oblivion. And after a while, the universe is seen going around once more, resetting again. Where Emporio now finds himself at a gas station, and Emporio is stunned to see an alternate version of Ermes alongside Anasui and Jolyne, now named Anakis and Irene. Irene asks Emporio to go with them. Emporio, seeing a star birthmark on Irene, cries. They also meet Weather and all drive off into the sunset. The world is now how it would be if Pucci never existed. All the characters not meeting, not remembering their adventures they had, but are still alive. Well, mostly. So pretty much the entirety of this arc was just some fan fiction in Emporio's head, because now it means that none of this happened. The story just continues after part 5, Jotaro not naming his daughter a JoJo name, meaning she doesn't have to fight anyone named Dio, and Pucci just never existed. So it's a happy ending. Question mark. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe as I'm hoping to reach 1000 subs, and click on the video on screen for another explain video.